Today, I'm going to look at this article called Milk for Our Children, Nutritional Reproduction and School Milk Debates in Switzerland by Edmee Ballif. In this article, she examines the controversy surrounding School Milk Day in Swiss schools. So originally, this was a cheerful event where milk ladies handed out flavored milk, but now it has become controversial because vegan and animal welfare groups frame it as propaganda for the dairy industry, while Swiss Milk defends it as a health-oriented educational activity. So the author is exploring how when we just talk about children's nutrition, it tells us more about how society imagines childhood, national identity, and what is considered a desirable future for children. So here she introduces this concept of nutritional reproduction, where what we feed children is actually a moral, gendered, and culturally loaded act, which is shaped by advice that we receive from experts, from national values and ideas about good parenting. And what normal children are taken to be are those who are white, affluent, and healthy. Milk consumption is historically associated with white European descent, and in Switzerland especially, alpine milk is tied to national heritage. So she brings up a few different conflict themes. So one is about authority. So where opponents say that school milk day is just commercial advertising disguised as education. It's these companies that want to sell milk, and they, through certain contracts, they get to advertise their products for free in schools. And that milk does not necessarily make strong bones because many other food substances can do that. Okay, she says that milk is a medium of oppression of lactating bodies, commodification, and environmental harm, even though it nourishes and facilitates the growth of newborns. And then here, I find this strange. So she cites a few scholars. You can see here Cohen, Gard, Gambert, Adams, saying that lactation is coded as female, thus reinforcing the perception that only female bodies are capable of producing milk. And since anything related to women or the feminine are devalued, therefore lactation is devalued. And then there's a comparison made between the poor and often racialized women who perform wet nursing, or there is the practice of when the mother does not nurse her own child but pays another woman to nurse. And often, I think in the context of the US, it was Black women. And so they compare this to the exploitation of dairy cows. Super problematic because then you're saying, you're saying that humans are as low as animals, right? Um, and then I think they're not recognizing the value of, with wet nursing, the baby still gets breast milk, and that's still the best food for the baby. And whether wet nursing is done for financial reasons or I don't know what are the reasons that white women did not want to breastfeed or could not breastfeed. In the end, looking at the child's best interest, the baby still receives the best food available for it. And then here, she talks about how milk intersects with racial hierarchies. So another scholar, Andrea Wiley, pointed out that many adults still cannot digest milk because they lack the enzyme lactase. For example, among African, Middle Eastern, and South Asian groups, a small minority can still digest milk, but usually it's people of white European descent. And then she argues that this leads to the association of cow's milk consumption with whiteness and white supremacy. And also what another scholar calls nutritional racism. So continuing to promote cow's milk to African American and Latinx populations despite higher rates of lactose intolerance. On one side, you have the opponents like the vegans and the animal activists, and the other side, you have the propaganda center for milk in Switzerland, known as Swiss Milk. Both sides agree that children should be fed according to expert knowledge, which in itself, that already, I feel like that's problematic, right? You should not just leave your child's health in the hands of experts, like whoever deems themselves experts. In the end, you have to care for your own child. So it's up to you to find what works for your child, what works for you, and not just listen to propaganda from either side, because I do think that on the vegan or animal group side, by saying that here, milk production is an incredibly violent culture, the exploitation of mother and child. The term mother and child is reserved for humans. Here they make it equivalent, humans and cows, when we are not the same. But this is the common framing in vegan activism, seeing animals on the same status as humans. And unfortunately, that also means you see humans on the same level as animals, even referring to humans as, I think, like human animals, and then animals are non-human animals. I think, well, you may care for animals. I still think humans come first. Overall, I think the article is useful in showing how food practices uphold a certain national imaginary, and then also certain kinds of injustices, insisting that certain foods are better than others, and kind of privileging them, by offering them for free in school, privileging them above others. But at the end of the day as well, milk is still a very valuable animal food. And for children who don't get enough protein, that is still a valuable source of animal protein for them. In Singapore, back in the 70s, we also had a school milk scheme. Here you can see primary school children lining up to receive a glass of milk. So this was back in the day, 1974, when many children were underweight. The government introduced the scheme so that students could buy milk at discounted prices, and those who came from poor families would get their milk for free. And no surprise, this actually dated all the way back to the colonial era in 1936 by a man named J.W. Scarf. He was a medical health officer working for the colonial government's health department. He noticed that undernourished kids in Singapore could potentially reap various health benefits by drinking milk. With the help of a teacher, he started a pilot project at Pasir Panjang Boys' School. Undernourished students would be given a glass of milk in the morning before classes or during recess. Later on, the United Nations even funded the free milk in Singapore up until the 1970s, where the school milk scheme was funded by the Singapore government. Now, I remember in my time, in the 90s, there was still milk being distributed at school, but it was flavored milk, so chocolate, and I think there was strawberry and plain milk. But our parents had to pay for it. And then I remember they came in packets, and it was very clearly a processed pasteurized product. And milk is and was not a normal food for people in the Malay world. Yes, there is consumption of some buffalo milk. Goat's milk, yes, and they were also given to babies, raw goat's milk. But usually the so-called milk that is common is coconut milk, which is of course not a milk. It's like you'd say it's a plant juice from the coconut. So you can see this is a colonial import. As Singapore modernized and people became more affluent, then children got more protein in general, and this milk scheme was eventually phased out. So that's all. See you in the next video.